Hey everybody, welcome back to Boston-Raleigh channel. We're gonna watch another one. Some battles here. We got some battles in the in the Revolutionary War. Where American history is always fun because there's only two wars in America. Basically, the War of 1812 isn't real. It's just the aftermath war of this one, and the Mexican-American War doesn't count because it's not a real. No, I it does feel like there are really just two wars that sort of epitomize American history, and it is funny because there's a ton of wars and we don't talk about any of them, but we're gonna talk about the big one because it's the 250th anniversary. We're gonna keep going. We're gonna go every single week until we reach the 250th. I'm gonna be doing a lot more American history in general on the channel. Let's go with more epic history. Battle, siege, navy stuff. I actually don't know which battle is this. Bunker Hill and Siege of Boston. That's right. I was actually right. Okay.
April 1775. A British ship carries an urgent message across the Atlantic to the American colonies. Britain's Parliament has passed a conciliatory resolution, a last-ditch effort by Prime Minister Lord North to avert conflict with the colonies. Now that resolution is en route to America.
It takes a long time to get across the Atlantic Ocean. Actually, this is part of the funny thing about this war is that it's such a remote operation because you have to have people from the tiny little European nation of Britain go all the way to that big old countryside in America and just start shelling them out. I mean, once they go down the coast, it gets worse and worse. But again, it's a really expensive venture. That's all I'll say about it. It's so expensive it'd make your head spin. And of course, this is just something that people aren't. Nobody involved in this conflict was super happy about it. If I'm being perfectly honest, this was sort of just this was sort of a desperation act by the colonies. And it was just an unpleasant thing to have to do by Britain. It's funny to me today, like when people talk about conflicts, like what we actually have to do, like day to day now, is survive with 20-30% taxes on income, and these people wanted like a 2% tax on tea, and that was going to wreck everything, because America can only exist when it is awesome. When things are sucky, we have a harder time. So that's how it goes.
It is a 6-week voyage. By the time,
and by awesome I mean lack of taxes and lack of freedom, right? You have to have freedom, otherwise America don't work.
it arrives, the shooting has started at Lexington and Concord. Blood has been spilled. The war has begun. Lord North's conciliatory resolution is met with defiance in colonial assemblies and the Continental Congress.
It sounds like live free or die to me.
Its terms, which do not concede Parliament's right to tax the colonies, offer far too little, too late.
I mean, yeah, them retaining power to impose taxes on commerce is too much of a... It's just such a, like, we get to control everything anyway. If that's the proposal, it's just dead on arrival. I mean, it is... See, it's funny, because these four, we have a list. Colonies must contribute to the cost of the common defense. That one makes so much more sense when you really look at everything, because that's one of the main issues that happened. Britain got a lot of war debt from the war, the French and Indian War, and they're like, well, we need to recoup some money. Colonies must cover the cost of royal government and administration. Well, I mean, depends. You know, it doesn't really seem all that fair and interesting depending on what you're getting to do. If you're getting taxed without represented, colonies may raise additional taxes subject to parliamentary approval. So, if we want to raise taxes, that's on us, right? As Britain, if we want to raise your taxes, then we can do that. But if you want to raise your own taxes, hold on, you need approval. That's super douchey. It's just kind of like, you can control a modicum of your fate. All right, that's not consolation. This is not conciliatory. You don't get to just come in and say, we've heard your qualms, and we've heard all of your plights. Let's give you like a shred. You get a shred of it. It's barely anything. We're gonna give you a little. Nothing. That's worth nothing to the colonies. They retain power to impose taxes on the commerce. Is funny to me when the prior thing is subject to parliamentary approval. You can raise your own taxes on yourself. That's insane.
The reply from Congress, written by Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and Richard Henry Lee, is a litany.
Man, look at all these men. 0 people know who Richard Henry Lee. I know who Richard Henry Lee is. I don't know a ton about him, but it's funny to me that it's like 4 men. Almost everyone who knows anything about American history knows who the other 3 are.
Of unredressed grievances. The Coercive Acts, the Quebec Act, Vice Admiralty Courts. The list goes on. Negotiations are faltering, with fatal consequences. The fighting will continue, and is about to reach bloody new heights.
Ooh. These fellows say we won't fight. By heaven, I hope I shall die up on my knees in blood. Joseph Warren, Battle of Bunker Hill. Ooh.
June 1775. The main British force in America is in Boston, commanded by General Thomas Gage. He has been reinforced to 6,000 regulars.
I like how we use the term regulars. Oh wait, that's a bad screen to pause on. I like how we use the term regulars to mean like they fight regularly in an army. It's funny to me because it's like you're kind of being over-explanatory of the fact that there is a difference between seasoned veterans and fresh whippersnappers who have not been in a lot of fighting. These are not untrained men like the colonies have. Of course, that's one of the big things about this war is that it's impressive that America ends up staving off Britain in the end, because we have a whole bunch of people who are not well trained in military experience, but Britain has a lot of regulars. Now you would see it as like in football and a lot of other sports and a lot of different games. As long as you're not like really, really, really talented, what you're going to see is that like old people are considered, oh man, that guy's old, he's no good. And the young people are all like the best and finest and greatest. But I think when it comes to battle, it seems like experience trumps almost everything. And that seems to be a common thread in history, where just being young doesn't give you an advantage. Although I guess being old and like too old would probably be a detriment. Just having being a regular, that's a big deal. That means you're projected to win over the non-regular.
But he is besieged by 15,000 New England militia.
Yeah, numbers game, let's go.
These men are highly motivated and have proven capable in combat, but they lack discipline and ammunition. Prior to the arrival of their new commander-in-chief, George Washington, they are under the command of Artemus Ward, a sickly 47-year-old militia officer of limited experience. Nevertheless, under his direction, the militia have fortified the heights overlooking the Charlestown Peninsula. From these
Bunker Hill and Breeds Hill. That's really cool. I like
positions,
those.
Cannon could target British ships in Boston's inner harbor. General Gage decides he must eliminate this threat and decides to seize the heights as a step to breaking the siege.
This is kind of the weird thing about Boston, is that it's the strategy when it comes to commerce and economics is very different than war, because like you saw with that map, actually going back a second here, hold on. As you see with this map, go on a little bit further. There we go. See, you got this little Boston Harbor, right? The actual like main part of Boston, you got that over here, all that. It's really hard to defend when you have people that can just set up and shell you from all sides. It's really helpful for shipping. When cohesion works, you got commerce, there's a level of cohesion, a level of like, just lawful order. Things work really well. But Boston Harbor is not the place you want to sit on to try and defend. I just feel like it's too accessible. And so it's like you really have to strong arm your way to setting that up. You just kind of have to have a radius around in order to really defend the harbor. So just looking at it, it's funny because I'm not gonna kind of try to overinflate the importance and significance of Boston generally, but this is just a really interesting scenario where that big capital city, like the one America is known for at this period of time, that's the hard to defend city. Versus back in this period of time, you would have had other cities that are like, especially fort cities that are just really, really good to sit in as a defense. This one is just great for commerce. That's the primary thing, and I think that's why Boston is so cool. I mean, New England as a whole. If you look at the sort of the people and the kinds of things, the kind of anthropology New England has, you see that there's a lot of we built a town around a church kind of thing. And so church was sort of at the center of like general cultural life. Here, commerce actually did serve a larger purpose relative to everything else. Not to say that church wasn't important to those people, but they built everything around the Boston Harbor. The rest of New England is all small towns built around little churches and things like that. Things that are of local organizational significance. In Pennsylvania, in New Jersey, and New York, those areas were built up a lot more by that kind of commerce. And things sort of stretched inward to where the general building blocks of society were based on where you did trade. And this is kind of one of those little cool things. You can't fortify or defend this, but Boston Harbor is just one of the most valuable places in the world, especially at this point in time.
General Gage decides he must eliminate this threat and decides to seize the heights as a step to breaking the siege.
You gotta kind of encircle yourself.
It will be an opportunity not only to avenge British honour, tarnished by the shambolic retreat from Concord.
See, you got the little towns and things like that in New England. That's kind of what they looked like. You got all those little like old cottages peppered around everywhere. It's really gorgeous. There's a lot of places in New England, by the way. I've gone back. There's a ton of places from like up above. It still looks like that. It's not as much the same in Boston. There's a lot of older stuff that's been gotten rid of. But like when I flew into Rhode Island last year, like the nice clean blanket of fluffy snow on top of all those, it's the most picturesque thing in the world, and you're seeing it in person. It's kind of glorious in a way that's really hard to encapsulate other than just sort of old-timey New England nostalgia. But as you see, they have to encircle themselves in order to hold the city, which is just kind of a weird task. It's not the kind of thing that you see very often when it comes to wartime stuff, but I think it probably is more significant around port cities. It's just funny to me that like what we have to do with Boston is we plant everything in Boston. We can ship everything out and back in, but we're gonna need to like encircle ourselves in our city just so that we don't have people on every different angle coming from every different direction trying to gun us down with cannons. So it's just kind of like there's a nuisance factor to trying to hold Boston, which is really cool. There's just the funny thing is that if you have this many regulars in the British Army, theoretically you just should be plowing through the other forces. But if it's a nuisance factor, it's impossible to hold someone else's country in those kinds of conditions where if you were just trying to defend your own, it'd be really easy to do.
General Burgoyne points out, it will also allay any doubt
that trained troops are invincible against any numbers or any position of undisciplined rabble.
I mean, that's too elitist. That's too elitist of a way of looking at it. Like I said, this isn't their country, because if it was, they could defend it. If you have the better troops, you should be able to defend your own country, theoretically. Trying to hold, not even just overtake, but hold someone else's, very difficult.
Gage orders Major General William Howe to make a frontal assault on Breed's Hill with 2,500 men. They are supported by naval ships, a floating battery of mortars, and cannon from Copp's Hill.
Right.
But the attack does not go to plan. Protected behind fences and earthworks, the undisciplined rabble pours a devastating, close-range fire into the British ranks.
Yup. It's over, Anakin. I have the high ground.
General Howe orders a second attack. It meets the same bloody repulse. Hundreds of regulars fall. Some British units lose half their men or more. Spurred on by the leadership of John Stark, James Reed, and Joseph Warren, the Patriot militia are holding their ground. But they are running out of ammunition. The chain of command has broken down amid the chaos of battle.
Like I said, this is a very miserable war overall, because think of all the British people that had to die charging for that. Imagine their families back home is like, well, we were trying to overtake this other country that's like 1,000 miles away for the glory and honor of the king, obviously. And then we just sent all of your men to go and die because they had to charge up a hill. And this wasn't the explanation, probably, but this is... It would have been, he died serving honorably for his country and for his king and all that, but this is kind of garbage. Like, imagine being the British soldiers having to be sent here to just go and collect the money, right? You're just trying to, you're trying to tax collect. This is an army, this is an entire war specifically over tax collection. And these people are dying over it. And for the British, I just don't see why this is valuable. Like, all these men, it cannot be worth what this is all worth. And I just feel like there should have been a diplomatic way to settle this for Britain to not lose so much the way that they have with this war.
Hundreds of reinforcements mill about in confusion on Bunker Hill, while their comrades fight for their lives. When Howe launches a third attack on Breed's Hill, the militia finally break in the face of British bayonets. The Redcoats' fury as they storm the redoubt is terrible. A British lieutenant is shocked by the slaughter.
I cannot pretend to describe the horror of the scene. It was streaming with blood and strewed with dead and dying men. The soldiers stabbing some and dashing out the brains of others was a sight too dreadful for me to dwell any longer on.
I mean, that's just like standard warfare, though. And I mean, this is part of the thing is that Europe is used to a different kind of war at this point in time. This is why World War I really destroyed them mentally. 16, 17, and 1800s war in Europe was kind of a very gentlemanly affair. It wasn't this chippy. It wasn't the Ravens Steelers game of warfare. Let's say that much. This is a different kind of, it's just a different kind of heated rivalry that makes people very upset because it's very hard. This is so difficult. I mean, like, Napoleon was hated by most of Europe, but I think that this is just a different thing entirely when you're looking at it on this kind of basis. Especially with just the tensions here, the disdain towards the colonists from Britain, and then the disdain towards the British from the colonists is just, it's really tense. And nothing about this war was pleasant. But that's really why Britain should have just, they should have let it go a long time ago. If they failed to keep the country under their control, which at this point they clearly have, they should have just not done all of this, because this was too much. It just cost them too much money. And letting it go without a fight, I'm sure would have been demoralizing in a sense, but this was the turning point that destroyed the monarchy in Britain.
The British take the heights, but are in no condition to follow up their success. In what becomes known as the Battle of Bunker Hill, they have lost 200 dead and more than 800 wounded. By
Right, because bullets don't always kill you.
contrast, Patriot casualties are around 450,
Yeah.
but include the charismatic Joseph Warren, president of the Massachusetts Provincial Congress. A commissioned officer who'd insisted on fighting as a private soldier, he was shot down in the redoubt during the final assault, becoming a martyr to the cause. For the Patriots, the battle, though a defeat, is a major morale boost.
And I mean, this is the thing, is that if you wipe out more than twice as many regulars as you have infantrymen, like you're not, what you're looking at is such a resounding defeat for the British on a very, very demoralizing level. Even though they won the fight, like they took the hill, but you didn't win anything. You took a hill in a conflict where you control no land going into here but Boston and Boston Harbor, and you're trying to push out as hard as you can to just re-surround yourself so that you're not being shelled from every angle. And then you're gonna have to then try to keep reinforcing your enforcement through obscene amounts of money and blood, and you can't do that.
They have stood their ground against British redcoats and tested them to the limit. For the British, it is a lesson learned. The rebels' determination and fighting spirit must be taken seriously.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
As General Sir Henry Clinton remarks,
A few more such victories would have shortly put an end to British dominion in America.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
they will not make the same mistake again.
Nope. Well, they also charged a really bad position to have to charge. Going for Bunker Hill was advantageous to take. It's just like, how expensive was that victory? Is it worth doing something like that? Again, you only control a city. You control a very small area within Massachusetts, let alone the rest of the colonies. This is just one fight in one state. Many of our subjects in North America, misled by dangerous and ill-designing men, have at length proceeded to open an avowed rebellion. George III.
That summer, British authority across the 13 colonies begins to disintegrate. The governors of North and South Carolina, Virginia, New York, and New Hampshire have all been forced to flee their homes.
New Hampshire be like, live free or die, baby. Just take off for a bit.
Others resign, while in Connecticut, John Trumbull sides with the Patriots. Only in New Jersey and Georgia do British-appointed governors retain any control.
Georgia, ironically, is one of the more British-American states, it seems like, in a lot of ways. When you look at it historically, Georgia was the most... Well, maybe not the most, but it is definitely one of the most, like, British-seeming British colonies.
The British have barely any troops in America outside of Boston.
Yeah.
A fact which is underscored when frontiersman Ethan Allen leads a band of New Hampshire militia to storm Fort Ticonderoga, held by a skeleton force of just 48 redcoats.
Yeah.
The so-called Gibraltar of North America falls without a shot fired, and the rebels seize 59 heavy guns from its arsenal.
That's such a cool little, just like, we marched in, we took them all, and we didn't kill anybody.
Yet even now, there are those on both sides who seek a peaceful way out of the crisis. Moderates, like John Dickinson of Pennsylvania, believe the colonies are too divided among themselves to survive without British protection. He foresees
A multitude of commonwealths, crimes, and calamities. Centuries of mutual jealousies, hatreds, wars of devastation. Till at last the exhausted provinces shall sink into slavery under the yoke of some fortunate conqueror.
Some cling to a belief that King George III is sympathetic to their cause. But
Can you see these ugly ass people in this picture? Whoever drew this really didn't like these people. The one lady with the parrot on her hand, she just looks like a man in drag. I mean, actually, all of them kind of look like men in drag, but good lord, they're ugly depictions.
has been led astray by his dishonest and corrupt ministers. In July, at Dickinson's urging, the Second Continental Congress sends a new petition to the king.
We solemnly assure your majesty that we most ardently desire the former harmony between Great Britain and these colonies may be restored. Your majesty's ministers, persevering in their measures and proceeding to open hostilities for enforcing them, have compelled us to arm in our own defense. We therefore beseech your majesty to settle peace through every part of your dominions, with all humility, submitting to your majesty's wise consideration.
Every single out has been thrown Britain's way at this point. You could have been out, like, it was like looking at these conflicts, these armed conflicts that have already happened. You're looking at the British Army from a step back, and you're kind of seeing, like, I don't know if you're going to be able to do this quite the way you think you are already. Like, it still seems like they have the advantage, but it's just like, you could just win while you're ahead, right? Because suing for peace is very different while you're ahead than while you're behind. That is a very, like, the concessions made are very different at that point. And so if you had just decided to quit while you were ahead, here, this particular part, I think this is where it could have gone their way. If they had just decided, we'll take it, we're just going to, like, let's just ask you guys, what do you think you should pay? We can come to an agreement here. You can pay this. This is the money you can send, and you just do that, and then it's fine, right? At that point, like, you just decide what's good, and then send it our way, and we'll have great commerce, and we'll be buddies, and we're not gonna deal with, like, we're not gonna deal with a really disgusting war for separation. And that would have been significantly better, but they couldn't win while they were ahead. They had to keep gambling, and they lost eventually.
It becomes known as the Olive Branch Petition.
Oh, yeah, it's a huge olive branch.
To London by news and maimed British soldiers from Bunker Hill.
But that should enforce it. Once the olive branch goes, it's like, well, hold on. We charged a hill, and we suffered such casualties to take that hill. You shouldn't. At that point, it's like, man, maybe we should quit while we're ahead. Maybe we don't want to keep going down this path anymore.
In August, George III declares his American colonies to be in open rebellion.
Right.
The British Empire begins to assemble its might to reclaim the colonies by force.
I mean, I assume the olive branch should not make it for a while, and they'd already readied an army to go crush them. His Excellency General Washington has arrived amongst us, universally admired, for was visible on every countenance. General Nathaniel Greene.
On the 2nd of July, 1775, General George Washington arrives outside Boston to take command of the newly christened Continental Army. Until recently, he'd been living a relatively quiet life as a Virginia plantation owner and local representative.
It's Mount Vernon.
But his military experience from the French and Indian War serving as a lieutenant colonel of militia, exceeds that of nearly any other American-born officer. Through an advantageous marriage to Martha Custis, he is also one of the richest men in America.
It does help that when this guy was painting this picture, they made Washington look very handsome compared to the way you might have actually. I mean, he was an older man by the point that we're used to seeing him, but that's still like, this is a very flattering picture, something very beautiful, as opposed to the last one that's very ugly. Art has undertone to it, if you will. Not everything is just old. Sometimes the people back in yonder, sometimes they really had an agenda or some sort of sway they wanted to give their audience here.
With a natural air of authority. Dr. Benjamin Rush, a congressional delegate from Pennsylvania, observes,
"He has so much martial dignity in his deportment that you would distinguish him to be a general and a soldier from among 10,000 people."
on a
Translation: this is the guy. If you were in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, he would clearly be the stand user. That man is he is the man made for this. The right man for the right time. Ergo.
arrival, Washington discovers the Continental Army to be in a deplorable state.
Oh yeah, of course it's deplorable.
Many soldiers lack proper muskets, and ammunition remains in critically short supply. There are few cannon, or even uniforms. Supply and logistics are in shambles. Discipline is virtually non-existent. The camp is a jumble of tents, ill-placed latrines, and unfinished earthworks. Officers fraternize with their men, who simply come and go as they please. Washington is aghast, but immediately gets to work. Officers are given sashes or cockades to distinguish them from their men. Severe punishments are introduced for desertion, fighting, and even swearing.
Hey man, don't use that kind of language around here.
Crucially, Washington orders his men be inoculated for smallpox, which has erupted across Massachusetts.
So this is a fun one, and I would love to talk more about this in particular. Inoculation is very different from modern vaccination in that you were given a little sample size of something, so that way you could be more prepared to handle it later. It's still the same general premise, but you're not, there's, to my knowledge, you're not putting mercury in you when you do this. Smallpox is bad when it runs rampant, but you need a little bit of this introduced so that you can then defend against it.
This practice, also used by the British, may have saved his army from destruction.
Of course it did.
The Continental Congress has appointed several generals to serve under Washington's overall command, for a mix of practical, military, and political reasons. Some will win fame, others infamy, in the years ahead.
All right. Before we get into those generals, I am going to cut us off for today, but we will be back next Monday with more. Oh boy, am I enjoying this. This is definitely one of my favorite series to do. Very, very big, very America, very based, very bulb-pilled. I'm enjoying this quite a bit. I like to watch these things because I like to just keep eating. There's a level of you just want to keep eating the good stuff. There's no point at which your brain is full the way that your belly is. So eating all of this is very good for you. Keep eating more and more history. It's delicious. It's very good for you. Make sure it's prepared well, though. You can have very bland meat by some old guy just kind of talking while there's like still frames of a picture that are like slowly being gone back on. Epic History does a really good job of making the food that is history very flavorful and very delicious and very healthy at the same time. I definitely recommend go watch more Epic History. Come back and watch this more and more. We have a China series. We've already done all of that. We have other stuff we're doing too. I'm trying to make a small list of things that I kind of want to bounce back and forth to, reacting to and reviewing all of this stuff. But yeah, definitely be sure to see that. If you subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, hit like, help the channel out a little bit, help us grow, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.